All right, everybody. I got a very special guest for you all this week. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Mr. Grant Lankard.
Hey everybody,
Welcome,
how's it
Grant.
going?
Such a it was so awesome to find your project. I think John Westoff posted it, and I saw it immediately and was just like, "This is the kind of book I'm always looking for." Like, I want more cryptids in my life, so I'm really glad to talk to you about it. But before we jump into that, I got to know kind of what's your origin story with all this? How'd you get into comics, and at what point did you think like I have a story to tell? I want to start creating these.
So specifically, how did I get into comics? I grew up in the '90s when everybody was reading comics. It was an exciting time. It was, I mean, sales records were getting broken left and right. There were a lot of new comic book stores, a lot of comic book stores that only lasted a year or two. But and the fact that Image came along really made it exciting because it felt like this is something that people could do. You know what I mean? Like not just do, but become very, very wealthy doing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I got really excited about that, and the difference between me and most people is that I kept reading comic books after that era was over. Um, and I always wanted to try my hand at becoming a comic book creator, but everybody told me, "Don't do that. There's no money in it. You'll be poor the rest of your life." I ended up going to school for graphic design out of high school, and I think in the back of my mind, I chose graphic design because it was a field that was kind of similar to being a comic book creator, and I mean a lot of the skills are transferable, anyways. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of those skills are useful in your current state.
exactly. So even though everybody told me like, "Oh, don't become a comic book creator," I think in the back of my mind, I always still had the idea like, "Yeah, I can become a comic book creator."
So, as you had in
So
the back of your mind, was League of Cryptids like the first thing that you wanted to do?
no, I did another comic book called Beowulf, and I started Beowulf over the pandemic because I kind of figured, I have a lot more time right now. If I don't do it now, I probably never will. And at first, I thought, um, maybe I'll see if there's some other creator who wants me, to help with their book. So I was going around like trying to like solicit people, like, hey, do you need some help with your book, or do you have any ideas? And all the ideas I heard were terrible. So, or I guess I shouldn't say that. They didn't speak to me personally. So I decided to come
Hmm.
up with a comic book. Beowulf. Beowulf is the guy you learned about in high school, reincarnated in modern times. And yeah, we're on the second miniseries of that, and we're also, like I said, working on League of Cryptids. And I also do a third comic book, which is Memoirs of the Morbid. That's my horror anthology. It's kind of in the same vein as like Tales from the Crypt, Creep Show, that kind of thing.
Okay. With Beowulf, you went to Kickstarter for all those issues as well.
Yeah, yeah. Everything I've ever done has been on Kickstarter. I've tried using other crowdfunding websites, and I haven't really had much luck with them. Um, I don't know. It's never really made sense to me why you would use a less popular crowdfunding software. Like, I mean, uh, to me, you want to get the maximum number of backers you can. So, I experimented with Indiegogo and just made like no money whatsoever on that. So I went right back to Kickstarter.
Yeah, I found for a little while a lot of creators were starting on Kickstarter and then doing an Indiegogo for the second round. just to get extra cash. And it was always funny because you go to Indiegogo and be like, the goal is $50 or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it always seemed like they barely got anything out of it.
I mean, I don't think I even got $50 out of Indiegogo. It was microscopic. I mean, I still occasionally get people say like, "Hey, I would love to back your book, but I just don't do Kickstarter." And I would say, "Oh, well, sorry. I mean, I don't know." But when I say occasionally, I mean very, very, very occasionally.
Have you set up any kind of like website or Shopify kind of thing?
Yeah. So
For
my
people to check
comic
them out?
book publisher is ComicsBurgh, and you can go to comicsburgh.com.
Oh.
You can not only check out what all of the books are about, see some artwork. You can find out personal information about all of the different ComicsBurgh creators. But you can also buy not the current books that are on Kickstarter, but you can buy back issues.
Yeah, I gotta assume you take care of your Kickstarter backers first, and then it goes over to ComicsBurgh. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I've been following kind of what ComicsBurgh's been doing, seeing that they've got a deal to go into the shops. Are you a part of that?
Yeah, so we're going. We have a distributor that only goes through bookstores. Actually, that's not true. They predominantly go through bookstores. There are some comic book stores that order off of them, but so we're only doing trade paperbacks through IPG. But yeah, I'm excited about it. So we had distribution through Diamond, and that went about as well as you can probably imagine it did. But I'm excited about IPG.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what happened with Diamond. Yeah, with IPG, I hadn't heard of them before this. So they mostly deal with like with bookstores, novels. Have they done a ton of comics work, or are you guys kind of their flagship for that?
They've done a little bit of comics work, mostly manga. But yeah, I mean, I've been telling other people this. So we've been focusing more on the book market than specifically the comic book market because we've actually been doing better at book festivals, bookstores, that sort of thing, as opposed to comic book store related. And the reason for that is I think comic book shops branched out so much to the point where it's more about the tchotchkes, the toys, stickers, trading cards, Warhammer, stuff like that. So, and I'm not saying that we're never going to do another comic book convention or anything like that, but we have been focusing more on the book market, quite frankly, because it's refreshing to go somewhere and have people be excited about reading. Yeah.
Yeah, my cat. She likes to get in trouble. So,
sorry, I keep coughing. I have a little bit of a cold.
Oh, you're good. I just got over one myself.
So, basically, what I was saying was, when we go to these book festivals, there's a lot less pearl clutching of like, oh my god, a comic book, than you would expect. So, in general, what we've found is that people who like to read, period. They don't really care if it's a book or a comic book. So, and like I said, I think that these comic cons have just been so overrun with cosplayers, the celebrities selling their autographs, trading card game tournaments. The comic books are like so far down on the totem pole.
Yeah, I was gonna say when it comes to comic shops, I know my local retailer who I'm friends with has always told me that the weekly books they pay the rent, everything else is the profit. Like
Yeah.
it's tough to just do comics because there's not enough of a market for just that to really have a thriving business. I'm
Well,
sure you can get some with back issues and stuff like that, but really the week to week is tough with how small our market is.
and I'm starting to see businesses starting up that are just selling trading cards, which I mean, I wondered how long it was going to take for the comic book shops to figure that out. Like, okay, if we're making more money off of Magic the Gathering, why don't we just make an entire store that's just Magic the Gathering instead of the comic books? Because the comic books take up more space than Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, and it's I kind of like the idea. Like at our local shop, we play D&D. They have like board game nights and everything. They used to do a lot of hero clicks. I know another local shop does Magic and Pokemon. Like I like the idea of it being a place for people to come and hang out and do things. And you would kind of hope that the person playing Magic the Gathering might look over and maybe they see the Magic the Gathering comic or like, hey, what's this? And check it out. But
Yeah.
I kind of doubt in the back of my head that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I've also heard people saying, we need to start reaching out to non-comic book readers. Like, I mean, and I usually do that. I usually post on some of like the cryptid Facebook groups that I follow. Like, hey, I've got a new comic book about cryptids, but I I mean, if I get even 3, maybe 4 backers because of that, I mean,
It's 3 or 4 more people.
yeah, it's 3 or 4 more people, but
Yeah.
I don't really know how useful that is. I mean, I know people say like, oh, the supposedly the comic book industry has been dying for the last 50 years, but I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it really does. Like, it does feel like we're waging an uphill battle, right?
At times, I think we have waves though, and we're kind of at that moment right now where the dog man generation is coming into shops, which is why I think something like Absolute Batman was like the perfect timing because it was a brand new #1 with no continuity for a character people knew that were already interested in somewhat because they read Dogman, they read Captain Underpants growing up, maybe they read some manga and everything and figured try this out. So I think there'll be waves, but yeah, I think it's always going to be kind of a small niche group that really at least reads the week to week comics.
I think it might be changing, and I think that might be something that's gonna come to an end. The week to week comic books, like it might be a thing that like when you go to a store, instead of saying, "Hey, can I get Captain America 237?" you might say, "Oh, hey, can I get the new Captain America trade paperback?" Or the new, I guess, Captain America graphic novel. Um, but I mean, I know. I mean, I've definitely heard people rumbling like, why are we still doing like the floppies? It's too expensive. There's too much overhead. There's no profit margin. Like, um, and I mean, I think eventually I'd like to get to a point where I can go straight to the graphic novel. But I mean, another thing is that's also, how do I put this? That's a lot of time without any profit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I wonder how it'll evolve. Maybe it won't be floppies in the week to week comic shop, which would be unfortunate because I love my comic shop, but I could see something like what Webtoons does, or Marvel and DC both have their apps as well that you pay for. Maybe they put regular drops there, and then it eventually gets put into a trade. Like I could see some sort of version of it existing, but not necessarily the version we see today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we are in a transitionary period.
Yeah, and I think you're right too when you say like people like to read because I always think of a lot of the women I know throughout my life, especially the ones that are in like some sort of book group, and usually it's what I jokingly call like dirty girl books because it's always like fantasy kind of smut books
Right.
or romance titles, and a few of them I've gotten to be like, you like this, try, and usually push Saga on them as the one that's the easiest to push. Like, try this, just read it. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, this is great. Like, this is, they didn't know that existed. They, like most people, think it's just Marvel, DC, flight and tights.
I mean, I posted something on Facebook the other day where I said, the thing that drives me crazy is half the people won't read comic books because they think comic books are just Superman and Batman.
Mm-hmm.
The other half of the people won't read comic books. They won't read any comic books that aren't Superman or Batman. So it's like I don't know what we as an industry are gonna do. I mean, if it might get to a point where we evolve into maybe Marvel and DC don't dominate the industry like they do now.
Well, I was just talking to Blake Morgan from Blake's Buzz, if you know that show.
Yeah.
And we were both kind of talking about how manga has had this thing for decades now, where it's you make the manga, you become popular, you get an anime, and there's a pipeline to success. And I think we're starting to see it with American comics, that pipeline being created. And I think Walking Dead was kind of the start of that, because I remember that phenomenon. I remember people who never read comics coming in and being like, I love this show, I heard it's a comic, and I want to read it.
Right.
But with Invincible becoming a cartoon, and Radiant Black is possibly going to be a cartoon soon, and adult-ish cartoons coming out of these things. I mean, you said you were a kid of the 90s. I'm sure, like me, you were watching Batman the Animated Series, and that might be one of the things that intrigued you to get into this, to get into these things. So to see something like that, something that doesn't talk down to its audience, and have some sort of pipeline to mainstream fandom, I think is what will do it for this industry in the long run.
I mean, you could go back further than that and say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
I mean, I never I never personally wanted to read the comic book because I liked the cartoon, but I'm sure a lot of people did.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you have any kids in your life, whether it be nieces, nephews, or sons or daughters or whatever, but if you see the kids today, it's a lot of they watch the anime and then want to buy the manga.
Yeah.
I see it so much. Like my girlfriend's son right now, it's all JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and he's watched the entire anime, and now he's going back and he's buying all the hardcover mangas because he just loves it. So
believe me, when we go to these conventions, I hear, "Oh, sorry, I don't read American comic books." I hear that like at least 10 or 12 times per day.
Yeah, I wish that would change, and I think what it comes down to is what you said earlier was the Batman. It's only flights and tights. There's nothing else in American comics. I'm like, there's this huge other part that's just so much more of the industry of exactly what you want in American comics. And it's unfortunate more people don't see it.
Yeah, in the name of full transparency, I'm not an anime or manga guy. I mean, I'm not saying that I've never seen one that I liked, but in general, it's not my cup of tea. But it definitely does feel like that's the path the industry is taking, right?
It's really just one thing at a time. I mean, you just got to take one person at a time, because I've always had kind of a fascination with anime and manga, grew up on Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. But I've shown a few books to people where I'm like, pick up this manga. It's some of the best comics you'll read. and I always try to refer to them more as comics because that's all they are. They're just comics. It's just a different culture doing it. It's kind of like, England has their version with 2000 AD and what they do over there. It's still comics, just different. But I could see like there's things in there that can be a transition with how they tell stories. I get that, and it all comes down to, like I said, I kind of want it as a whole. Want people to see all this as one big thing and not have to separate them by terms. But I'll probably never get that dream.
Yeah.
But
speaking of turning comic books into animated shows, I would love if League of Cryptids became an animated show. I think that it would be a lot of fun. It could totally be like Ninja Turtles or whatever.
It's a great transition. So we started this with, I discovered your book randomly and just realized I had to talk to you about it because, I mean, you give the pitch. What is League of Cryptids?
League of Cryptids is a superhero team comprised of the 5 most popular superheroes. Sasquatch is the leader. The Loch Ness Monster is the sensitive one. Mothman is the mysterious one. Chupacabra is kind of like the wild card, and Jersey Devil is the hothead, or the comic relief, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But the idea is they're all representatives of different planets. They came to Earth thousands of years ago to help us develop. And while they're here, they kind of have to balance not interfering, kind of in the same way like in Star Trek, they have like the Prime Directive. They're not supposed to directly interact with humans, but they are supposed to kind of influence us and protect us from outside sources.
So kind of like a Justice League that lurks in the shadows.
Exactly.
What was the impetus for this story for you?
So I was looking at a list of different cryptids and what, like, their heights and their different powers that they had, and the different strength levels, that sort of thing. And while I was looking at it, it reminded me of like character sheets of superheroes. And the more I started to think about it, the more I thought, like, hey, actually, you know what? This would make kind of a neat superhero team. Could I, like, they kind of, each member kind of, there are archetypes in superhero teams, like I was just saying, like, the hothead, the comedic relief, the savage one, and I thought, this would actually make a pretty cool little superhero team.
And so did you always kind of have a fascination with cryptids prior to this?
Yeah, so the big thing that got me into cryptids was just looking for YouTube videos while I'm working on my comic books. I can sit. I don't know if you do this too, but I'm always looking for YouTube videos to play while I'm drawing, so that I'll have something playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
There are actually quite a bit of YouTube channels that focus on cryptids.
And so you just kind of started to grow this knowledge and had this like grand idea through that as you were drawing one of your other books.
Yeah, and eventually, I mean, everybody always asks me like, okay, is this guy going to be in your comic book? Is this guy going to be in your comic book? Eventually, I want them all to be in my comic book, but I have to figure out like an organic way to introduce the characters. Do you have a favorite cryptid?
Sheep squash.
Sheep Squatch. Okay.
So one of the things with cryptids that always fascinated me was I like the mythology behind them, and just this like weird kind of, it's the same with like UFOs and aliens and all that, like the conspiracy behind it, the mythology that's been created around it. It's fun. It's like a comic book. Like it's fun, fascinating, and you get to learn all these cool facts about them and everything.
Yeah.
But I also have.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I always wonder, like, what, like, I mean, if they are made up, like, what possessed somebody to make up, like, oh, you know, a Sasquatch that looks kind of like a sheep? You know what I mean? Is the average person really that creative?
Well, yeah, because I have questions too about like UFO sightings and everything in particular. Like, it's so weird that so many people, especially in a time prior to the internet, we're talking about the 40s, 50s, 60s, where so many people had like this similar experience in different parts of the United States, and you find out as you read about it, the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a part of me that's like, there's something there. I think cryptids are a little bit easier to explain away through, because I do think that people have a bit of an imagination, or I could see somebody maybe on a certain substance or a little drunk or something, and they just see something like, holy shit, it was this. Yeah. But it is fun that like something like Sheep Squatch, like that's a West Virginia folklore.
They're all,
and it's just like, and it's just like, it's so weird and strange. And I kind of like the weird and strange. Like, that's one of the things that originally brought me to comics, was these like goofy, weird stories that really weren't being told anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I started to see that in cryptids as well. And it was just kind of fun. I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm somebody who's going to go out and like search for Bigfoot, because I believe 100% he's real.
Right.
Like, I'm sure at some point in the evolutionary path there was something like a Bigfoot, but to say he's out there right now today in those woods, I doubt it. But it's a fun story, and it's fun mythology to follow. For me, you just can't take it too seriously. Like, when you take it too seriously, I think some people just get too far into that path, and it takes them down negative points in their life. But that's just one man's opinion on that one.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of them, it came naturally too, because I was always really intrigued with the whole UFO story. And then you start to get into how the UFO stories are connected with the cryptids and some of the mythology. And as you know, with your story, where we see a lot of that. And what I found interesting with you is you started with their big bad for this story arc being the Loveland Frogmen.
Right.
Why did you choose them to be the first one for your team to fight?
Oh, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that. I don't know. I just thought that they would be fun to draw. They're kind of cute. Hopefully they're not too cute to not be menacing. You know what? I've never actually thought about that. I don't know why I chose the Loveland Frogmen as their first villain. But you will, if you read the comic book, I think I tried not to give away the surprise. There's another villain who's kind of like the Lex Luthor of my comic book, who kind of like is in the background, like kind of pulling the strings. So there's that to look forward to in for those of you who want to back the comic book as well.
So you're 4 issues in. Does this story go on? Is this the last issue of the story arc, or how many issues do you plan on going for this one?
So this is the last issue of Frogs Go to Loveland. And then after this, it does end. I will say it does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I do want to tell more stories.
Oh yeah, it sounds like you could go on with this for a while, assuming people are, which I hope people are going to be reading it for you because it sounds like a cool book.
Thanks.
Do you have it mapped out, like what the next couple arcs would be, assuming you get to go that far?
I mean, I have the next arc mapped out, and I do want to do solo stories like just Sasquatch, just Jersey Devil, just Mothman, etc. But I don't have too far ahead mapped out because I feel like sometimes creators who plan too far in ahead, they can kind of use that as a form of procrastinating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever known anybody like that who just gets so into, I can't start issue 1 until I have like the first 100 issues planned out, and it's like, okay, I think you're just doing that as a form of procrastinating.
I don't know if I've run across that personally, but I do know a lot of creators talk about the moments they want to hit in their story, like, and they might say like, hey, at issue 25 we want to hit this moment, and then issue 50 this moment, but it can also be shortened or lengthened based on how popular the book is, or how much time they have to make the book. If you're a smaller creator who's doing it Kickstarter, it might be a shortened timeline there. But yeah, but I don't know if I've come across that. No. So can we expect to learn who your Lex Luthor is in this volume, or is that the big cliffhanger that he might be like?
You actually learned that in issue 2.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm excited. I backed it. I'm gonna get all 4 issues because I'm excited to check it out. And for this 4th issue, what's the big thing you want people to get out of this issue when they get their hands on it?
The big thing I want is, well, let's see. Sasquatch. Well, it goes more into Sasquatch, like the relationship between the main villain, which it's hard for me to talk about because I don't want to give away who the main villain is. Yeah. But kind of his backstory and why there's hard feelings behind them.
So you think Sasquatch is kind of the big the main character, so to say, for
he's definitely the
first.
Yeah, he's kind of like the audience surrogate too. Although there are a couple human characters, just so that for people who have trouble relating to non-human characters.
And do you think does this book? I know you said you've reached out to a few cryptids only sites or cryptids only Facebook pages or whatever to try to talk to them and see if you can get them interested. Is there anything about this, like, do you do a good job introducing the characters for people who may not be you or me that's really interested in this, that may just think it looks cool and want to check it out?
I do. Now, I will tell you, I'm a little bit nervous when people tell me, like, oh, I'm really into cryptids, because I do play fast and loose with the mythology. But like you said, I think sometimes people can take some of that a little bit too seriously. And I guess the point I'm making is, what's the line from Mystery Science Theater 3000? It's just a comic book. You should really just relax.
That's something when the status quo changes on your favorite comic book character. When Captain America says Hail Hydra and becomes part of Hydra, right, and everybody freaks out about it, and I'm like, give it a year or two. He'll be back. They're telling a story, and they're going to reset him back to where he was. Don't worry about it. Same with you. If you're so mad about the backstory of cryptids, first, I get it because I'm a comic fan, but I also would have a few questions.
Yeah.
But it's fine to play fast and loose, like, to make your story work. It's as long as the heart of those, and it's tough to say because these are creatures that exist out in the wilderness and may or may not exist. Like
Well, yeah,
it's not like they have characterization that we can pull from, really.
something that somebody asked me, which never even dawned on me, was somebody brought up the fact that there is a theory. So in my comic book, Bigfoot has magic powers. He's a sorcerer, and one of the things that he does is he casts teleportation spells. And somebody asked me, like, did you do that on purpose because you knew that there's a theory that Sasquatch can teleport? And I was like, you know what? I had heard that theory, but I had never really thought about it. Like, no, I just thought that was one of his magic spells.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know friend of the show, Timothy Fling, did a book. I think he only's done one issue so far. He did the Call of the Cryptids book.
Yeah, I know Timothy.
And
he only lives like 3 or 4 hours away from me.
Great guy. And that first issue, is it a spoiler? There's a moment where something similar happens, but he connects it in a different way. And I remember it happening and being like, oh yeah, like, because Timothy is somebody who's really into it too. So it's, you found your way to introduce that idea. He found his way. And then the next person to come along and do this will find another way. It's, as long as the story's good and the characters are fun, I think the people who take it too seriously, you don't need to worry about.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is there anything else about the book? I mean, I know when we go to the Kickstarter page, people can back it. They can get all 4 issues, physical and digital. They can get a lot of your prior work. Is there anything in particular about the Kickstarter you wanted to talk about before we wrap everything up?
Yeah, you can get issues 1 through 3 if you want those as well. Yeah, I think it's a cool little story. I think people are going to enjoy it. So please check out the Kickstarter.
And where can people follow you or ComicsBurgh on social media, assuming you guys do all that?
Yeah, ComicsBurgh.com is our website. Check that out. I'm Grant Lankard on social media. Most social media, I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I'm on most social media as Grant Lankard, and that's a pretty distinct name. If you search for that, I think you'll find it.
Definitely. So everybody check out the show notes down below. I'll have a link to the Kickstarter page first and foremost, so you can go and back that. And then also to ComicsBurgh's website, to some of the social media. So check out those show notes down below for that. Grant, I think the book looks really cool, and I'm really excited to finally get to read it. Hopefully here when the Kickstarter funds. And just best of luck with the project, man.
Thank you so much. It was definitely a pleasure speaking with you, Chris. Thanks for having me on the show.